All right. Hi everyone. It's been a while since I last did a stream or posted a video, so I thank Deputy Nico for allowing me to share on the channel one of the videos that he made. Since I still do not currently have an editing software on my laptop, so that creates an issue as I want to try and edit the same quality of videos that I was creating before my desktop went down, and try and do that for you guys. But sadly, I can't get the same editing software on my laptop because I cannot find a download link for it. So I'm going to have to sort this out quite soon because I'm going to need that editing software for a school project as well. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, it is good to see you all again, especially in a stream format, and I really want to talk about some of the um, things that have been going through my mind and share with you guys, and try and get you guys involved in some of the decision making that I do for the community. Keep in mind, by the way, for the stream that I'm currently working off of my, like I said, I'm working off of my laptop, so I don't have my usual microphone since I'm not sitting at my desk. So I'm currently running off of my headphone microphone for the stream. So it's going to sound a little different from what it usually does, but I can assure you that I can go back to the better microphone, which just happens to be a like a $20 Rock Band 4 microphone that sounds better than this headset, which probably costs twice or triple as much as that. So I want to start in the SoNY Discord. I had a conversation with some individuals about the differences about some of the models and the differences between what I used to make versus the current state of things. And that sort of inspired me to make this live stream and probably another one in the future at a better time for more people. To be able to go over how I currently feel about SoNY and sort of some ideas that I have moving forward for the community. But I also want to get some feedback from you guys about that. Um, I see NYCRP New York City roleplay in the chat. If you couldn't join the server and got immediately kicked, it's probably due to account age. If your Discord or Roblox account are not within 30 days, because of the server rule 1, you have to be removed from the server until such time that your account complies with the 30-day requirement. So this all started in general chat in the SoNY Discord, where I was having a conversation with an individual about why Tower Ladder 1 was thrown away. So I get this question quite a bit. Oh, where's the tower ladder? Where's the tiller? Because we do kind of have those apparatus in the game, but I never finished them. And here's essentially why. There's two main reasons that I can say that the tower ladder and tiller models that I had were decommissioned. Number one, I'm not a tower ladder guy. I don't have a lot of real life experience with mid-mount fire apparatus, and I hope to change that in the future whenever I can, but do keep in mind that that's not really something that I have a lot of experience with, so it makes it a lot harder to build, whereas the rear mounts, I know the ins and outs of rear mount aerial ladders and how they operate because I was on a company that had one. That was a year ago until our truck went out of service, but that's besides the point. And the second reason, other than my lack of experience with mid-mount apparatus, is that the truck models are extremely old. They were originally built back in 2018, where I originally built the Seagrave cab that is still in use today. I actually want to see if there's a way that I can throw some photographs in the... Yeah, we will miss the rear mount ALF. I want to see if there's a way that I can throw some photographs on the screen for you guys as like a little slideshow so you can see some of the things that I'm talking about. But at least for now, I'll try and get to some of the points that I want to cover. If you want to see the images that I'm talking about and get an idea of what the models that I'm referring to look like, do check out the SoNY Discord. You can find them in general. Just scrolling up from 4 days ago on April 4th, 2022. So the model was built back in 2018. I had minimal experience with tower ladders. I still do. And my development abilities from then were very different from what they are now. And I changed a lot of the fleet in SoNY. I changed a lot of the fire apparatus to better designs, better color scheme. That was a pain in the ass to change the color scheme on all the apparatus. Oh, hack, don't drop the Q word, please. Don't drop the Q word in the chat. So because I changed the entire fleet, especially on the engine side, because they all basically have the same cab, and then the cab was duplicated over to the tower ladder and the tiller. The tower and tiller were still unfinished, and I put them off to the side. And over time, they just became a hassle to maintain and keep updated with the rest of the SoNY, FDNY fleet. I'm going to try and make a folder really quickly. All right. So here is what the truck used to look like. So as you can see, it's not entirely accurate, and it literally is a copy of the cab that I developed for the engine. You can still see the hose bed in the bumper and the the roles and the connections there. But overall, it's not the greatest model, especially compared to the changes and updates that we've done over time in the SoNY community. So it definitely needed a lot of work, definitely needed a lot of updates, and it just became too much of a hassle to update. And keep in mind that that project was started in December of 2018. So I'm going to go over to what it looks like currently. I keep using Shift S, thinking that that will scale, keeping the ratio. In reality, OBS is the opposite. So that's what it looks like currently. You can see that the color scheme has been updated. The wheels have been changed. A lot more of the modeling had been completed. And this was June of 2021. So there you go. There's your tower ladder status. For SoNY. Here's I'm gonna add another image to that. A more completed, better front image of the apparatus. And the next image will be from February of 2021. So, I mean, it's not terrible, but it definitely needs so much work. And it never got completed. The components and the mechanics of the tower ladder, or the boom itself, became a little more complicated than expected. And because of the scale of the model not being entirely up to where it needs to be, it makes it a lot harder to make compromises in the design. And the cab itself is not entirely where it could be, especially considering the changes that have happened on the newer development in SoNY. And I get constant barrages of individuals that tell me that the apparatus model is too wide, which initially I thought was okay, but over time I realized that yes, it is on the excessive side, and I am making changes in newer apparatus to not be as wide from paint side to paint side, essentially, of the cab of the apparatus, and then through there the body of the truck follows. So the truck design is not where it needs to be. Keep in mind that these designs are made off of DeviantArt templates instead of spec sheets. The Roblox community has definitely changed in its dynamic of realistic fire apparatus, and I kind of have myself to blame for that case. In my How I Made a Realistic Fire Truck on Roblox video, I pretty much expressed that I really wanted to see more Roblox communities do realistic fire apparatus. And that video was made back in 2018 to 2019, when it still wasn't as common to make a detailed fire apparatus. A lot of people were still using more like Firestone bases where it wasn't overly detailed, but you could tell it was a fire truck. And then I wanted more people to start taking it to the next level. And the Roblox community absolutely provided. Over the last 2 to 3 years, the dynamic of fire apparatus on Roblox has definitely changed, especially with the ability to convert and import mesh models from Blender into Roblox. That changed the entire dynamic of how fire truck modeling on Roblox is. So initially, SoNY was ahead of the curve, and now we've fallen behind the curve in fire truck development in an extremely dramatic and fast manner. However, the final nail in the coffin for the tower ladder was February of 2020, which is when I realized that it was time to stop the tower ladder project in an effort to scrap the current project and eventually try something different. And the image that I'm about to show you is a real-life image. This, I'm sure you all can read and know what it is if you're an FDNY follower. If I can scale this right. So, I was on a trip, a school field trip with the engineering academy of my high school, since they had open spots that were open to IT people, since I was in IT. And I went hoping to see FDNY apparatus, and I did. I saw a engine 1 using a spare, Seagrave, and passed by ladder 21, its engine, and then its battalion on the other side of the bus. But we got stopped at a traffic light, and I got this very nice view of ladder 21. This was the final nail in the coffin for the 2018 based tower ladder project in SoNY, because I saw this and realized just how different my model was from where it needed to be. So it was at that point that I realized it's time to end the project and try something else. So very nice picture of ladder 21, and this does help me a lot with my building for SoNY, having these references. I also took a short little video as we were pulling up to it, which gives me the backside of the apparatus, as well as the current angle that you're seeing now, and a little bit of the light bar flash patterns too. Not that that's overly complicated on the FDNY spec, but once again, still good references for me to have. But the tower ladder and the tiller projects are not where they need to be, so that's why I decided to scrap them. So there's been a lot of questions of where's your tower ladder, why did you scrap it, what's going to happen with the tower ladder, are you not building a tower ladder for SoNY? So let me clear that misconception right now. SoNY absolutely has to have a tower ladder in the game, because we have the need to put in companies from FDNY that are tower ladder companies. Like, I originally wanted to put in tower ladder 1 and tower ladder 15 into the game, and then add more from other areas of Manhattan. Since originally SoNY was going to start in lower Manhattan, that's why I focused more on that area. So ladder 1, ladder 15, I'm not sure about adding 21 truck into the game, but that might be possible. Why can't I super chat? That's because this channel is not monetized. So sadly, we do not have the 4,000 watch hours that YouTube requires us to have in order to do that. But thank you for asking. But anyway, there's definitely a lot of changes that need to happen, and the 2018 models need to be updated. So, and here's the lucky part for me is that I stopped building the project at a very good time. For the reason being that the tower ladders that I want to add into SoNY, uh, or certain tower ladders that I want to add into SoNY are subject to replacement, especially ladder 15 recently was replaced with a 2020 edition. I'm not being particular with the year, but a 2020 edition um, Seagrave tower ladder. So when I say 2020, I'm referring to 2020 spec and forward. So that means put folks' videos on loop. I mean, you can, but YouTube also added the feature where you have to click yes, otherwise it will pause the video. You have to click yes to say that you're still watching. So yeah, that was the final nail in the coffin, going past Hudson Yards and seeing that tower ladder and comparing it to my own models. So that is done. That project's done. By the way, ladder 21 is getting a 95-foot new Seagrave, so that's going to be quite exciting to see. The building of SoNY, the truck development and the design has drastically changed in a lot of ways over time. The KME engine took me 10 days before I completed it, and I did steal a lot of parts off of the Seagraves in order to do that. Let me throw up a quick image. So this was from the development Discord on February 17th, 2020, so that was about 2 years, 2 months ago. The KME engine was finally completed after about 10 days of work, and by the end I got very lazy and started just duplicating stuff from the Seagraves in order to finish the truck a lot faster. The cab for the initial base, just doing the side and doing sort of the overall shape of the side of the one side of the cab, took me just under an hour to do, and for SoNY that's pretty much still record time. So I built this truck extremely quickly, and it turned out very nice. In fact, I would say a lot nicer than the Seagrave base, especially because every time I build a truck, it has newer designs and methods of designing that I do to assemble each new fire apparatus. But keep in mind that every time I do that, I have to add the features of the last one onto the next generation. So pretty much you see the difference between the 2018 build and the 2020 build, the early 2020 build. And it's quite significant. I've really learned a lot about unions in Roblox and how to work with them. So it definitely changed the dynamic of how I build the apparatus. The first major change was the window outline. I believe I started that on the KME, and then I also did a lot of the interior and started designing a lot of the interior of the cab and doing a lot of details on the doors. Sorry about the long pauses. I'm copying an image and uploading it here. So you can see how the interior had advanced from I basically copied because the original chassis was based off of the Rengate free apparatus that he released a long time ago from the original Fire Sim game, like the version 1 trucks that he released, and a lot of the interior and hose designs were pretty much copied from those vehicles. Versus, as I continue to build, I do it more and more my way, and going away from those models um, to really make these trucks a lot more accurate and just more visually appealing. So you can see the door details on the cab and the steps as well, with the step lights, were a lot more accurately based compared to previous editions where it was just like the floorboard pretty much goes right up to the door, and then there's a metal step that's pretty much a rectangle, which is not accurate to what they have in New York City. So this became the new standard for apparatus moving forward. But this was only the last. This was the last completed. Keep in mind, fire apparatus in SoNY's history up to this point. While I made this project, I still had the tower ladder, the tiller, and the hazmat second piece still unfinished and in need of completion. Later on down the line, the Seagrave spare would also go down on the unfinished list, and still is to this day, and a couple of other apparatus as well. So I ended up starting a lot of projects without finishing them moving forward. And this has created a lot of issues, because then it ends up like the tower ladder situation where it's built in 2018 and needs a lot of improvements to be able to match the rest of the newer updates and changes to the fleet. And you can see that here. Here's the tiller cab, and I did all of the compartment doors, the Seagrave spare cab later on in 2020, and then the tower ladder, which, as you can see, has the incorrect lights on the cab for that particular date of apparatus. So I originally wanted to make tower ladder 15, and then change it to tower 1 to make the 2014 style apparatus, and that project pretty much went unfinished and still is to this day. So now that's been scrapped. I'm not going to work on it anymore. Instead, we can look to newer designs moving forward. I'm going to open up the Trello really quickly. I have no idea how I'm going to navigate through it on here, but we're going to find out. Alright, so can I interact with this? I can. So the big change that I want to get done within this summer is this right here, and that is the conversion to HASSI 6C 1.5, and get away from the current HASSI that we have in SoNY. For those of you who play SoNY currently, you are aware that we have the sort of standardized HASSI that a lot of other groups use, which is nice and it works very well. But I do want to make some changes to make the game experience a little bit better, especially for the civilian players, to make the car driving a little bit more accurate, having to switch into a drive gear, reverse gear, neutral gear. So the advantage to this is that if you need to stop at a traffic light, your car won't automatically switch into reverse when you're holding down S to slow down and brake. You would actually have to switch into reverse in order for your car to actually go into reverse. Whereas it does that automatically when you're pretty much less than 5 miles per hour and holding the brake, which is not very accurate to real life. So overall, I've been putting in a lot of work and time into this, and I'm very, very happy with the results. We also are looking into an an Allison transmission GUI for the trucks, for the FDNY trucks. So what happened with the Allison transmission, you can actually click on the GUI, and it's no different than your gear switch, your automatic gear switch on a real-life fire with a real-life fire apparatus, where you can switch between drive, neutral, and reverse. Obviously, your parking switch is separate on the fire apparatus, so it doesn't have a park gear on that system. But this is going to change the dynamic of how you drive the fire apparatus and how you drive the cars in SoNY. This is a huge, huge difference to what we currently have. And the advantage to the system that I'm switching to is that I actually found out that I can turn my light and siren controllers into HASSI plugins instead of putting them under doing your typical system where you put them under the drive seat. The advantage to the plug-in system is that the chassis already gives you the siren controller when you get in the seat, instead of having two systems that do the exact same thing to give you GUIs. It simplifies the system significantly and overall makes the game a lot more efficient in that method. So that's what I'm looking forward to on the chassis system. Testing the chassis system is actually the Z3 siren controller. So I was able to design this GUI based off of the real Code 3 Z3 controller and try and replicate a lot of the functionality of it. PAPD uses the Code 3 system, so this controller works out very well for testing since I can use their vehicle, and I'm currently working on a 2020 FPIU. So whenever I finish that for PAPD, then I can make the NYPD one, and so on and so forth. Whoever pretty much needs the 2020. So I built this GUI in a way that can scale up and down on different screen sizes while still maintaining the scale of all of the buttons. So essentially, if I squish this GUI horizontally, it will still maintain its shape and not look more distorted than scrunched together. But the buttons won't move around. They'll stay exactly as they are, but they're going to be more rectangular. And I also imported the colors and the buttons in a way that I can easily change the colors on Roblox instead of having to change it on Paint.net, which makes developing and modifying the GUI much, much easier. So this is sort of the standard that I'm working on making moving forward, so that way any vehicles and any siren control GUIs moving forward can have a similar system, which makes it a lot easier to implement onto a vehicle and also a lot easier to maintain and make changes to. I think I can foresee, no guarantees, that the FDNY will be getting a brand new GUI for their apparatus. Let me see if I actually have a photo of the current one. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I have a photo of the current one on here. But the new controller would have a lot more options and a lot more customizability because of all of the different siren functions that they have on the apparatus. And I want to be able to use the same GUI while still being able to change it based on different types of sirens or controls that New York City has. I also want to be able to add the electric horns because we do not currently have the electric horns able to be used on the apparatus. So there's no electric EQ2B horn. There's also but there is only the air horn, like the truck air horn. So I also want to add the secondary option just for fun and accuracy because you can use those functions on the real life controllers. The other changes that I look forward to are hopefully being able to make a citywide garage door system. Currently, you can hit a button while driving a vehicle, and if you're a certain distance away from the station that's assigned to that vehicle, it will open the bay door for that particular truck. Whereas this system will allow drivers to be able to open any garage door in the city so long as they're close enough to it. So this would also help out with users being able to cover. So if you are covering a station as a different truck, you would still be able to use their garage door normally as if you were going into your own station. So if you're covering, it would be a lot easier on the chauffeurs to be able to open the door without having to have somebody jump out and stay there in the middle of the street and wait for the door to open and so on and so forth. The next big thing that I announced over the Discord is the citywide CAD system, so you can get a feel for how that would be. And all agencies in SoNY would be able to use this system. Obviously, FDNY would still have their MDT system. However, their chiefs and their commanding members and their dispatchers would be able to utilize and modify this system as needed to be able to better communicate with each other and better establish interagency cooperation. So that way FDNY, if they're running a scene, can coordinate with EMS and get them on the same ticket as their call. Because on the FDNY MDT, it's not exactly set up for that. It's basically only set up for FDNY usage. So this will make interagency communication and coordination of resources a lot easier. At the bottom, you'll be able to see what resources are currently available and what their status is and where they are, what call they're assigned to, so on and so forth. I am working on manual sirens. We just finished the Z3. We already had the Q, the PA300, the Smart Siren, and the EQ2B. Model 28 I have the audio for, but I still apparently need to script the system, even though I thought I did that. I guess Roblox did not save. PA4000 for the ambulances. and I forget the particular model number, but NYSP has a wheel-in siren that has a lot of different functionality. So their system would also have to be modified as well. So those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to on my end that I'm working on for SoNY. The other developers have their own assignments, and keep in mind that you can all see this Trello if you go to the link that you can find in the important links and information channel in the SoNY Discord. And you can see all of the Trello cards and all the information within them. The pump system is still very much an unknown. It's been an unknown since day one. However, there's no real efficient and I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. There's no efficient way to create a system to basically act like a hose line in Roblox. You do see people making their system very similar to where it has a bunch of sections, and the sections will inflate when you turn on the water, and that's great. But if you've seen my video on the hose system, I think it's titled "Trying to Innovate on Roblox Be Like." But if you've seen that video, a lot of people said that they were, oh, we're so happy to have the system, or, oh, how do you make it? When in reality, the video was trying to demonstrate that system does not work because Roblox physics simply do not support the type of system that it's trying to be when you're trying to use it. Right, it's not correct. I agree with Hack where he says it's not efficient or reliable. I'm actually going to move that behind the chat so you guys can see it. So it's not the greatest system. You can see here in this photo, I've originally tried to use rope constraints, but rope constraints are very good at doing their job of constraining the player. So I tried to make a pump system where the player holds the hose, and then there's a rope constraint attached to the end of what the player holds, and then that runs all the way from the player to the pump connection. This is excellent if you are going towards the pump panel, but does not work if you're trying to walk in a direction opposite from the pump panel. Otherwise, you have to greatly extend the length of the rope constraint pretty much through the ground in order for the player to be able to walk away from the pump. Because rope constraints, like I said, constrain the player to a certain distance. Does Poke make turnout gear? Yes, I do. I have made turnout gear for SoNY. You can actually see it here. More tools need to be created. I was actually speaking with Jamie Wallace on this not too long ago. We actually made a ladder, placeable ladder system for SoNY. I mean, with some modifications, it can be a little bit better. But the system does work pretty well for what it needs to do. Rengate's host system. See, I like and I don't like his host system that's in FRCH, and it's going to be very difficult to try and recreate that because what it does is it has to calculate distances and positions from what point to stretch to what. And as you can see from players in FRCH, that system is also not reliable and does leave a lot of remnant pieces of hose line around plenty of areas in the map. Question is, will you make them mesh? If you're talking about the tools, I do have intentions on eventually making them mesh. The good place to start would be parts, and then we can convert them over to mesh models. The big thing that I need to do is learn Blender, because then that will speed up the process significantly, because depending on other people to do it doesn't always work. And now I do like to distribute the workload to all of the members of the development team based on what skills they have. But I can't depend on only Mano is my name for mesh projects. If we had more developers that could do it, I wouldn't be as concerned, but it does create a challenge. A lot of people have asked about the law enforcement vehicles. I mean, yes, there's still a lot that need to be finished, as you can see from here. But there's going to be a whole change to pretty much all of the vehicles in SoNY, especially with the chassis update. I plan on swapping out the models because some of them are older models from TFI that are not as detailed as some of the modern models that people on the Roblox community are developing. At the end of the day, there's been no reliable host system on the Roblox platform, minus the Mano Firestone way. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can absolutely, it would take me 2 seconds, pretty much, to convert the tool that I have set up on one of my testing places to a Roblox tool that can be used like the Mano system. The only issue is that it's still not really the system that I wanted to make. And I hate having to use that system because it's not very realistic, because you're basically just carrying a hose line that's not connected to anything. So it's a compromise that I would lose in that case, but it's a compromise that would be for the betterment of the SoNY community. The newer apparatus that I was mentioning before look a little bit like this. Even this one is not up to par. It's not where it needs to be. So this project is also being scrapped. The 2020 engine is no longer being worked on for SoNY. Are there any questions to me or SoNY at the moment? Please feel free to add them into the chat. I would like to say that I am considering 3D clothing items. If you don't know what that is, that's essentially where you have turnout gear or something that's usually worn externally from your typical clothing that's made either as a mesh or as a CSG part and welded to the player in certain ways. That essentially makes it go over the player. Now, Roblox did come up with an update that makes mesh coats and jackets and pants, but I'm not exactly sure if that's the route that the community wants to go in. And it really will depend on the skills of the person doing the mesh if we were to be doing that. The other part to the 3D clothing is that I found out recently, and I feel very stupid for this, is that it would be very easy to make higher quality images on our uniforms. So like for the rank insignia and for the patches on the sleeves, I can basically overlay a GUI onto the player, a surface GUI, and that would give me the same result but in higher quality, because Roblox only limits your uniform template size to a certain thing, and it looks very pixelated as the end result. So I can actually increase the quality extremely easily by doing the method that I'm considering. So that could also be something that we could be expecting in SoNY in the future. The new Roblox system is also very buggy. Well, of course, because it just released. So it's not as reliable, and the consequences that come with using it are not as known at this current moment. The 3D clothing that I'm referring to looks a little bit like this in terms of the badge and the patch on the sleeve. This is not the 3D clothing that would be used for bunker gear, except some element of this would be. So as you can see, the chevrons and the patch for the logo look very high quality, very detailed, as compared to your typical Roblox uniform. So this is a pretty good possibility that we could take. And I think, especially for the New York State Police, because they have so many different sergeant ranks, instead of making 100 different uniforms to be able to account for sleeve insignia, this would be the alternative, which would be extremely easy because it's basically just swapping out an image, which is no different than the rest of the uniform system at this time. Having the different uniforms for the sleeve insignia makes things a lot more complicated. So if this is what we can do, then you basically only need one uniform for the entire department, and then the rest of it can be modified in-game by changing the images on the side to be able to depict the different ranks. And especially with t-shirts and the rank insignia, I can take larger scale images and put them into Roblox, and Roblox will scale them down, and it will still maintain the same quality of the image, just in a smaller scale. Whereas right now, I'm making basically like pixel insignia for the uniforms, and it doesn't stand out as nice, and it doesn't fit onto the shirts as nicely as well. There are some compromises that I have to make when designing them. So this would definitely be a lifesaver for the SoNY community. And yes, that is correct. It would pretty much save you guys as the players of the game a lot on having to buy the uniforms in certain cases, especially for like formal events. Though in SoNY Meeting Center, I have tried to work on systems that will allow you to get your uniform from your department without having to go through a process of purchasing it. It will just give you the uniform the same way that it does in the game. So I do like that system, and I think that this is something that we should have even... I can't believe we didn't even consider it a long time ago. Because it definitely yields a lot better results, a lot higher quality. Here's another point that I would like to bring here. This is pretty much the current skyline of the SoNY game. And I get an extraordinary amount of complaints from other communities uh, and criticisms of SoNY because the game has been in development for almost 4 years, and yet a lot of these buildings are still not developed. I have assigned building projects to the rest of the development team to get done whenever they can, because I cannot really enforce activity on a Roblox community. It doesn't work out very well, because if you do, people leave and then you don't have development progress. But if you have them on the team and they don't do anything on the team, you still don't have any more development progress. So it does create some issues on that aspect. But either way, I delegate a lot of the building assignments to members of the development team because most of them are builders, not as experienced scripters, which is perfectly acceptable because, especially as of the last year or so, I become more and more of a scripter than a builder because SoNY has really needed it. The functionality of the game has needed to be expanded significantly, so I haven't focused as much on the visual aspect of the game as compared to what I started with, where it was pretty much focusing on all of the visual aspect of the game. See, I learned a very important lesson with the fire apparatus, that building a realistic vehicle doesn't mean anything until it functions the way it needs to, and until it has a world around it that functions the way it needs to. Being able to interact with things enhances the player experience, and that's partially why people don't like SoNY in its current state, because I lock a lot of players out of being able to interact with things. Because that's pretty much been the point of this group, is to make it a roleplay intensive, heavy roleplay sort of game. So those are the sacrifices that I've had to make with this game. Is I decrease player happiness by locking the vehicles, but I also decrease player happiness by not locking the vehicles, which leads to abuse, and people get angry at the individuals who troll the fire scenes and such. So that becomes a lot. That turns into a lot of issues. But the whole point of SoNY was to be a more roleplay oriented community where we really focus on accurate roleplay, and we don't let just anybody get onto the team and drive the vehicles and try and put out fires. Because the founders, including myself, of the SoNY community hated having to deal with that in a game like Mano County, which is where most of us started off. So those are the sacrifices that we have to make in that aspect. But don't think for any moment that I've completely forgotten about the civilian aspect of SoNY, because it needs to be implemented on a larger scale. I feel very bad for the civilian players, and I've had conversations with people in real life about SoNY, and their suggestion was all the time to add more things for players who don't have access to the teams to be able to do. And I 100% this motion. My main focus has been on the FDNY from the very beginning, and still is, until we get it to a point where you can play it without. That's pretty much the goal of where I want to get this game to be, is so that you can play it without having to use administrative authorities to be able to do things. Like right now, you can't get the fire tools without using admin commands. And eventually I want to put them, and I'm sure that you guys are well aware, if you've been in the community for long enough, that I want to be able to make a click system, so you have to open the door and the tool model will be present inside of the compartment. And you click on the tool model to get that tool. So that's where I want to get the game to be. I want it to be functional enough so that way you don't have to use admin. And that's when I can say that we can move on to a newer stage in SoNY where we can continue to build off of that. But civilian players have gotten left in the dark in terms of what they can do. Pretty much the only thing you can do is drive around in a car and create roleplay scenes through the chat. And not everybody's into that, and I completely understand. Like I said before, you want to have a world functionality. Like civilian players want to be able to go to a bank or a store in SoNY and be able to create a robbery or just sit down and buy a meal or something like that. So on top of giving civilian players something to do, it gives the law enforcement something to do, and it gives the fire department something to do. Let's say you can go to a fuse box, and if you have a hammer tool, you can use the hammer tool to mess up the fuse box and start a building fire. Something like that. And it gives not only the civilians something to do, but it gives the fire department in the game something to do. If you make the game free when the game is finished, I think anyone that paid to play the game gets something for paying to play the game before it was done. I don't think the game will ever be free, and I've stated this several streams when people ask about it, for the reason being that it protects the roleplay of the game, much like how Firestone is or was a paid access game. I don't know if it still is, but Firestone was a paid access game. And what that does is it keeps a lot of the trollers and the alternate accounts of banned users out of the group to make the roleplay a little bit better for the players. And there is already something that I want to do for people who paid in the early access stage, back when the game costed 500 Robux, because those users should get rewarded for their contribution to the community and for being here for such a long time. I don't know how many early access players still exist in the SoNY Discord, but I have seen several of them leave the Discord over time for their own reasons, and it makes me wonder how, depending on how far we get into the game, how many of them will still be around. So we'll see how that goes. How would one go about joining the FDNY? There's a whole thing about that in the SoNY Discord that you can get instructions for how to do that. I will have to make some sort of clip, a stream clip or video, just to answer that question, so that way I can just send the link and it would give an in-depth tutorial on what that process is. I could probably screenshot the information from critical announcements and go over it here. How can I join the FDNY? How can I be a firefighter? In order to join the FDNY and SoNY, you have to join the SoNY group, which is the first requirement to become a citizen, which actually we redubbed to be a resident. So it's the first requirement that you need to become a resident. If you apply and pass the residency application, which is a requirement to join all departments, you will then be able to be eligible to apply for application into the fire or EMS or law enforcement training academies whenever their applications open. Now, fire department training academy application has not been open in a very long time, but once the curriculum is redone, I plan on opening that once more for a certain period of time, depending on how many responses we get in a lot of if in an allotted amount of time. You would then have to apply into the academy and get accepted. This is the hardest part, I would say, is actually getting into the academy. So many applications get denied, or people ask repeatedly to join the academy, but then they never apply. So you've sort of killed your shot there. You have to go to the training sessions and take and pass the quiz for each session. Now, the quizzes are usually handed out every 2 sessions as a review of the 2 sessions. And if you don't pass the quiz, then you're going to have to retake it. And if you fail on the retake, you'd have to redo those sessions again. And you can go back on any of the sessions at any time to do a review and get a refresher. It also helps out anybody who has to take the session for the first time, because then there's more people there to do the training with. So you can assign larger groups to the fire scenarios, and it makes it a lot more fun. When all the sessions are completed, there's a final exam that if the firefighter takes and passes it, that they will be eligible to attend graduation and get certified. And you also get to retake the exam a second time. But after that, I believe you would then have to stay behind for the next class. And the advantage to our setup is that you can stay behind for 2 classes. So you can essentially go through one, and if you don't get all the way through it and you don't pass the exam, you can still be in the next class and then graduate with the next class. After that, then you have to restart the entire curriculum. Once you graduate the academy and obtain certification, you can then get into the FDNY and get accepted. Now, it says apply. That could be subject to change. There might be a scenario where you have to apply into the department, but I'm not entirely sure about that. It's possible that we might make it an auto-enrollment system, so if you finish the academy training, that you can just immediately get into the department. Once you're in the department, you can become a probationary firefighter for an allotted amount of time. Just be active and participate in the shifts, and then the probationary phase will be shorter. And then you can be promoted to an official firefighter, which at that point you can take the chauffeur test and be able to drive the fire apparatus. Just being a firefighter in the group does not allow you to actually drive the apparatus. You have to go through a training and get certified to do that. But that is one of the things that you can do, and it's pretty much a requirement for the initial classes. So that way, if anybody's on the shift, they can drive the fire apparatus. Where are the applications? I get this asked a lot. Are they open? Applications are still not open for any of the academies at this time. That includes the Fire Academy, Law Enforcement, and EMS academies. More administrative documents must be made, and preparation must take place. A training center is also in progress for the FDNY at this time. That is correct. We are still working on the training center, but our classes have been taking place in the main game. In the meantime, we've set up a classroom in Engine 1 Ladder 24's quarters, which has worked out pretty well for the first class. And it was a lot of fun. So do please wait for the official application released. If you are a resident, there's a channel that you can see, which is called Department Announcements, and that's where the applications are released. Keep in mind that in order to see this channel, you must be a resident. So that means taking the residency application, since only residents can apply. You'll get plenty of notice when they're released. I do tag very frequently when applications are released to make sure that you guys get an ample amount of notice. can I drive the fire trucks? Why can't I drive them? Keep in mind that the apparatus have a team, group, and group rank lock on them. So you have to be a certain rank in the group, and you have to be on the team. However, only Firefighter Plus can have the ability to drive the trucks, but even if you're a firefighter in the group, you still cannot drive the fire apparatus without going through chauffeur training. Keep in mind that chauffeur training does not include only simply driving the apparatus, but it also includes of doing pump operations and setting up the ladder on a ladder apparatus. So there you go. There's your how to join FDNY and SoNY. And this message can be found in critical announcements on the SoNY Discord. So there's the full message for you if you missed a certain part of it. I'm probably going to clip this and somebody can edit it as needed and send it to me, and then I can repost it. That would be very appreciated. So that way it's more concise and coherent. Are you still the fire chief or some other rank? Well, I'm currently holding the position of the chief of department in the FDNY group, which is the highest uniformed position in the department. We do have a quote-unquote commissioner, which is Bligital. He does a little bit more administrative stuff than he does hands-on stuff, but he will come to the trainings and shifts every so often. You'll probably see him drifting around Rescue 1 in the game every so often, and that's very fun. And we do have a few other people who are chiefs in the department who are helping out with the curriculum and the training, but I will still be looking for more individuals from the Class 1 who are already in the group, hopefully to be able to step up and help us out with the training and the curriculum guidelines and the department policies. And then that will speed up the process moving forward for getting more people into the department. I have been fixing a lot of issues that have come up in the game, like the lag issue from the last stream that I mentioned in the early part of the stream, that I'm like, hey, we do have a lag issue, and I'm looking to try and do some debugging in this stream. I did find that issue, and I did resolve it, so now we don't have the lag whenever a player touches the fire. That was due to a small coding error by myself that has been resolved. So now the game runs a lot smoother and won't lag due to the collision with the fire like it did before. Alright, so here is a more recent change to the game. I finally added the thumbnail images on the right side of the car spawner GUI. I absolutely love the car spawner GUI that we have now. It is honestly a very nice system, and I'm so happy that I took the time to redesign the car spawner and make the system. But it's been almost a year or so since I made it, and still did not have any thumbnail images for the vehicles. So now I have added some. Roblox has taken some down, so I'm gonna have to re-upload them as best as I can. But do keep in mind that these thumbnail images will probably not be permanent, and they might change with the changing of the vehicle system that I mentioned earlier in the stream. And some of the vehicle models are going to get swapped out as well. At least that's what I anticipate. I'm curious if I have no idea if this will work. I'm curious if this will actually. Um, Media source maybe. Here is the ladder system that I mentioned before, that Jamie Wallace had scripted. So you can see it makes things very easy. The ladder will be placed by the user, and they can size and move it as needed for their operation. And then I also requested that he develop the system in a way that I could make ladders that have different lengths. So so that can be an option, as well as ladders that may have multiple fly sections. In this one, you can see that this one only has one fly section that can move up and down, and then the base section still stays in contact with the ground. But I also requested that, for whatever reason, if we wanted to change the system or modify it, that we could add more fly sections to the ground ladder. So that's definitely something that we can mess with. We can make the GUI a little bit more clean. So yeah, any of the system can pretty much be changed with suggestions from the community. But overall, I am very hopeful with this system, and this system will probably also be able to be used with other types of placeable tools like traffic cones, which would be used by not only the fire department but also the police department in certain situations. If you don't have someone holding it, you have a chance to fall. That'd be interesting. You have to have somebody footing the ladder. At least at the current point, I don't think that's recommended because we don't have a very high staff in the department at the moment. But could be a possibility in the future. But yeah, this is the ladder system that Jamie Wallace has worked on. I've made some changes to the system myself, where I'm trying to make it so, where I actually made it so that way, I mean, in this clip, you don't see it very well, but the rungs of the ladder on the extension don't line up. So I did make some changes to that, but I'm probably gonna swap out the ladder model anyway, because this one is just copied off of the top of the current engine in the game. So this is the one from the top of the engine. That's where this ladder model came from. I put in a decent amount of time into modeling that, but it's not accurate. So yeah, definitely some changes coming down the road, and then we can make some additions to the fire apparatus the future fire apparatus builds where they will actually have the ladder lifting mechanism, the hydraulic lift on the side that the rail trucks do. So that way the ladder can come off of the top of the compartment and it will extend off of the side of the truck, making it easier to pick up and carry. I'm sure they will have a lot of staff when it is done. With everything they will make the server grow and staff. I certainly hope so. Do rigs have backup alarms? Yeah, they do not at the moment. That's one of the things that I actually want to put under the new chassis. I might have that on the Trello. Let me interact with Trello very quickly. I think it's under. I want to say it's going to be under the 2021 chassis. I don't know if I listed it, but that definitely was one of the things that I thought about. Okay, so I guess I did not list it, but I do have that on the plans. Let me go into Trello on an actual tab and then add that, so I don't forget to add that in the future. Thank you for reminding me. It's extremely simple to script. You are correct in that assumption. Especially under the new chassis where it actually, you have to manually switch between reverse, neutral, and drive. As soon as you switch into neutral, just hit have the backup alarm sound play, and as soon as you switch out of it, have it stop. It's extremely simple, extremely easy to add. And technically, I already have that system on the PAPD 2020 car. Not a backup alarm, but a similar system with the white lights coming on when the car is thrown into reverse. This is what happens to Mars at 12 a.m. Yes, honestly, a lot of the best ideas I've had for this game or in general have been at early hours of the morning, but then I forget them the next morning, which is very disappointing. So this is why I have to write things down on Trello, otherwise I forget. This is the car I was mentioning a second ago, by the way. The Port Authority 2020 Ford Explorer. I am swapping out the Code 3 Pursuit light bar on the roof of this car with a different style that they have on their vehicles, because I haven't seen any videos of the Pursuit being used on the 2020 Explorer, but I have seen it on some of their other vehicles, including the Tahoe, the newer Tahoe, and the 2017 style Ford Explorer. Yes, but our FDNY trucks definitely need backup alarms because, especially through my personal experiences with adding sound and modifying sound in SoNY, sound makes a huge difference in the gameplay. See, having a quiet Roblox game and then only having siren sounds when you turn them on doesn't add to the depth and feel, especially of a city game. whereas having the ambience where you hear the wind and the the and the voices of people in the background, the airplane flying overhead in the game that we have, that also makes a sound. So you hear it when it's flying above you. It it changes the dynamic of the game significantly, especially with the pass alarm updates and the recent changes to all of the game's siren sounds to make them sound a lot better. So those are definitely things that make a huge impact on the quality of the game is sound. And with the Roblox sound changes, we weren't overly affected by them because I was able to get a lot of the audios that I needed and swap them out. But I do need to swap out certain audios that were already existing in SoNY for better alternatives. Like on the 2020 Ford Explorer, I was actually able to find a video of a real Explorer starting up, use that audio, and try and make a motor sound from the actual vehicle. And I hope to do that with more cars because originally all of the cars in SoNY have a Ford startup sound, which not all of the cars that have it were Fords. And I think the biggest change that I saw is when I got the real motor sounds and the real startup sounds for the Silverado, the new Silverado that's used as the FDNY battalion cars, because the motor on that sounds very nice. So sound does make a huge difference in this game, and I'm going to keep working on trying to make the sound a little bit better in SoNY. Sorry for the two comment, but you guys should add motorbikes, IK, IRL, department use them. NYPD Highway Patrol does have motorcycles, but once again, NYPD is not overly my focus. I'm only doing this Port Authority car because number one, I can test the new chassis on it, and number two, we already have two Port Authority cars in the game currently that have not seen updates in a very, very long time. And then the 2020 FPIU that I have here can be converted to NYPD. But I haven't really focused on the specialized division like the motorcycles for the Highway Patrol as of yet. At least the 2020 FPIUs would go under the patrol bureau in a lot of cases. What about residential smoke detectors for that high rise? I don't think I have a fire alarm system in the high-rise building that goes on fire, but I do have it in the two main commercial buildings that set on fire in the game. So yeah, that definitely is something that I can add into that building. I actually have a photo of that building on fire that I can use to show what building he's talking about, or at least that I think he's talking about. There it is. So yeah, this building does set on fire, but it does not have a fire alarm sound, which definitely is something that should be added into that apartment. So very easy to implement that system actually with the way that I have it set up on the other ones. by the way, 2020 Engine 8. Looks very nice, but sadly that project is not being worked on anymore. This is a beautiful, beautiful shot of Rescue 1 from SoNY. So I just wanted to throw this in here while I was scrolling through the images in Game Photo Album. Go check it out in the Discord. You'll actually see it as soon as you join. You can see a lot of the in-game screenshots, and this is one of them. Here you have another. This is, I believe this is Foxy Rainbow Sword in this photo. And the cool thing about our apparatus is that you see he has the probationary shield on his helmet, and that's the default for all the firefighters. This is the default for all the firefighters, but if you get inside one of the apparatus as a firefighter, lieutenant, or captain, it will give you the helmet shield for that rank of that company. So that's one of the cool things about our apparatus is that you can actually change your helmet shield automatically just by sitting in the truck. Commissioner C, I just saw your message. Technically, in New York City, it's very difficult to do a 360 because of how tight the buildings are to each other. You can't really walk around without going around the whole block, but then again, there's no access to the center area of the block. So it's very difficult to do a 360 in New York City. I absolutely love the design of the helmets. I think they came out very nice. Though I have seen some people develop a lot better, more realistic mesh editions. I mean, this one is mesh, but I have I have seen some people making a lot higher quality helmets. But I gotta say, I do like the design that we have here. I do want to go back a second. Since I just found this image to compare it to. So now you can definitely see the difference in the quality that we could get with the 3D or image uniform insignia. As you see on the right, this is what we currently have in SoNY on the uniforms, and then on the left is definitely a lot more detailed. I think that's the automatic sensitivity that I have on the microphone cutting me out. That's something that I will be able to fix at another time. But anyway, what I wanted to begin to cover in this stream is sort of my ideas for where to take the game and keep it as an open discussion outside of my normal realm of just doing it in general VC and SoNY, to be able to get more input from you guys on the YouTube side who may not be in the Discord or just aren't involved in that channel as much as I may be there. So this gives you guys an opportunity to put in your input and ask questions to get answers to things that you don't currently know. But I have put in way too much time into SoNY to be able to turn back now. So it's tedious. It's already been a long time, and I'm just as frustrated as the rest of the community is in terms of the development process of this game. But keep in mind that we took this challenge on knowing the consequences and the risk associated with it, and yet we still continue to push to make this game become something every single day. A lot of people ask, is the game when the game releases, or if the game is, or whenever the game release. You can play this game right now. Go onto the Roblox site. You can also use the links that I'll post in the description when the stream ends to go to the SoNY group, and you'll find the link on the SoNY group page under the group games. But yes, you can play this game, you can test it out, you can give me your feedback and your suggestions in the Discord channel, and I would greatly appreciate that. But this game has been so frustrating at times, but it has also shown that with enough commitment, enough time, enough patience, that you can make an idea into a reality. Now, this has definitely taken a lot longer than I anticipated. It's taken a lot longer than the community has anticipated, but there's no point in turning back now. So, there's a saying, or at least a mentality, that giving up is not okay. Giving up is absolutely okay as long as you do it strategically. If something is not working, repeatedly trying a million times the same way to do it is not going to fix it. So it is important that throughout this process we rethink we rethink and question our own actions, and we question ourselves and say, is the path that we're taking right now actually getting us somewhere? If not, go back to the drawing board and try another plan. It's no different than the incident command system that FEMA developed, where if there's no progress within a certain allotted amount of time, a given amount of time, maybe we need to extend the amount of time that we've provided. Maybe we're making good progress, where they just need a little bit more time than we anticipated, or we need to rethink our operation. So it's no different than the command system, and that's sort of the mentality that I have started to take here, where I need to sort of rethink about, where do I want SoNY to be? Go back to my original ideas and say, okay, what will work, what will not work, and what can work with a given amount of time, or it requires a lot of time in order to be able to work. So I am fed up with SoNY being the way it is. I've poured my heart and soul into this game, and it's still not where I want it to be. So it frustrates me just as much as it does you guys. But it's also important that we have to work together to get this game done. Anybody in the SoNY community is able to contribute development assistance without being a part of the development team through our community contributions program. And it would greatly, greatly help speed up the process of the development of this game. If the community as a whole continues to be involved in the development process, continue to support the development on our YouTube, on our Discord, on whatever social media platforms that I have. Support us on Patreon, on my Patreon, which you'll find the link to in the description below. And we also have a Teespring store if you want to get some SoNY themed shirts, or SoNY or PokeCop themed shirts and hoodies. You can do that. We also just launched some different designs on glassware and mugs, so that's pretty cool. I actually really like the design on the glassware, how the SoNY has the FDNY stripe. The SoNY logo has the FDNY stripes, and they sort of wrap around the glass. It looks really nice. So definitely check that out. But please continue to support the development of this game. Continue to share the game with people you know. Try and get them involved in the Discord, because we still have a goal of 500 Discord members in order to become a community server, or a Discord partnered server. So please try and encourage more people to join who are eligible. Make sure that they have a 30-day old or more account. I don't want people to create a bunch of alts like today and try and join, because that's not recommended. But yeah, definitely get involved in the Discord, because that's where I do a lot of the announcements and keep people in the loop through Discord, more than I do even here. So that's definitely the place to go. Check out Patreon. Like I said, check out the other social media pages that I have, Instagram, Twitter. I know I don't really use them a lot, but supporting me on there will encourage me to do so. And overall, continue to be a part of the SoNY community. We've gone this far over the course of almost 4 years, and it's time that we really, really step up our game moving into this summer when schedules start to open up and people can contribute more time into working on this game and working in this community. So, like I said, as much as I'm fed up with this game, it is still something that I love to do and work on. I started this about 3.5 years ago, coming up to 4 years, because I wanted to change the demographic of Roblox. And through that change, I inspired other people to continue to make better communities on the platform and start to get away from the traditional Mano County or Firestone style and look for newer alternatives. And I'm so glad that I've been able to lead that push in the community and inspire other people through other groups to make their own groups and try and make their own versions of SoNY. But either way, what's important is that SoNY itself continues to keep up and evolve with the advancements that the rest of the Roblox community is making. Because SoNY was pretty much founded on trying to be ahead of the curve, and now we've fallen behind, and it's time that we start to make a push once more. Like I said, continue to support through our social media, Patreon, Teespring, and I will hope to see you again in the next stream. I'll probably do another one of these discussing the future of SoNY to try and get more people in the loop who were not able to watch this stream and try and get them to keep up with what's going on. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next stream. Have fun, everybody, and have a good night. Okay, bye.